All right, good morning. All right, good morning. Kitch Kennedy. I'm from SailDrone. I want to thank Gloss and NMC for having us here. It's great weather and also bringing that ship in. Can't imagine how to back that thing in. That's pretty awesome. So yeah, good morning. Thank you very much. So just probably preaching to the choir, talking about the challenge. I mean, that's why we're all here today. I've definitely learned a lot this week, and then talk to you a little bit about what SailDrone does and who we are. A little bit about our data collection, ocean data collection. Again, maybe not completely relevant to ocean mapping or lakebed mapping, but it is definitely a capability and a technology that we bring that's important to understanding the environment and the habitat of the Great Lakes, and then talk a little bit about our ocean mapping capability. Again, preaching to the choir here. I think the biggest thing that I've learned is we've got to figure out these fish stakes. How do we chart all these fish stakes that are out there? It's a definite big challenge that we have ahead of us, and Gloss setting that date of 2030, I think is necessary. Whether we think it's completely achievable in that time frame and funding wise and all those kind of things, we've got to put that stake in the ground and say this is our objective and our goal that we're going to work together on and meet that goal. I think one of the things that we also have to think about is when we think 7 years, 2030, 7 years, it is not a full 7 years of survey season because of the environment, because of the short windows, and how do we maximize that time that we do have, and not just in the good weather, but getting into that shoulder season, and that's really where long endurance, low carbon, high survivability USVs, UAVs, other autonomous vehicles can help augment what we can bring with crewed vessels. More importantly, as we talked about, and that's why we're here today or this week, is to talk about doing it as a collaborative system. There's no one tool in that toolbox that's going to do everything. We've got to work together, multinationally, multi-agency, cross companies, cross technology, and use what we can where we can, when the weather's available, when the environment allows for, whether it's SDV or crowdsourced bathymetry, and then focus where we want to use those crewed vessels and the crewed vessels there and where they're most efficient, and then employ that autonomous technology where we can, and try to scale that as much as possible to utilize that minimum window that we do have to maximize our data collection. So I'll talk a little bit about our technology here. So SailDrone, we are a data company, a data and a software company. We do have, I think, a pretty cool technology in our drones, but we are selling data, we are collecting data, and we do mission as a service, or data as a service, where it's working with our customers to understand what their requirements are, what sensors are best to meet those needs, and then instead of selling those drones and having the customer have to worry about the maintenance, the upkeep, the logistics, the training, we will do that, and we will collect that data, and you just want that data to make sure that you're meeting your mission need. We do have a couple facilities out in Alameda, California, is where we're currently producing our drones, but we're looking to scale those up as we work with some shipbuilding companies such as Austal and Seaman to meet the increasing demand of our vehicles. We work in pretty much 3 verticals in terms of our services. Maritime domain awareness. Again, probably not as relevant for this, but that's really more of maritime security, information, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, more of what you're looking for, Coast Guards, the Navies, understanding where you might have illegal trafficking, drug runners, but also illegal fishing. And then ocean mapping, obviously very relevant to this group, having the capability to map from the shallows out to the deep water ocean, full ocean depth. And then ocean data, that METOC, meteorology, oceanography, data collection, to help understand the environment and the climate and help us manage those resources. Within those verticals, we have 3 vehicles that somewhat align, but all the vehicles can work across those verticals. Our Explorer is our predominant platform right now. That's a 23-foot vessel. It's completely solar and wind powered, and then you move to our Voyager, our midsize, where now once we start getting to our midsize vehicles, our Voyager and our Surveyor, because we start putting active sensors on there, multi-beam sensors, radar, we start having to have a little bit more power draw, and solar just isn't enough to maintain the capacity needed for the power. So we do add a diesel electric generator for both those vehicles, which provides twofold. It's one, to recharge the batteries, but it's also, where needed, maneuverability. Again, the Voyager is kind of the workhorse. Again, it can do everything across all three verticals: ocean mapping, ocean data, and maritime domain awareness. And it can be specifically fitted up with acoustic sensors, and radar, and visual, and then AIS as well. And we're looking to build a passive acoustic sensor on there as well. And then our Voyager, as I mentioned, our Surveyor is our large platform. Right now, 72 feet, but we're reducing that as a next generation variant will be 65 feet. So much larger ocean going, where we're starting to put more of a deep water multi-beam sensor on there. When we work with our customers, we provide access through our mission portal. And this is where the customer has the ability to see where their vehicles are, see the time series of the data that's coming through. Again, whether it's oceanography data, meteorology data, or hydrography, you're not getting the full access of the raw data, because that's just not capable of putting that through our radio satellite communications. But you can see a snapshot, a daily product of the quality of the data, monitor the vehicle, and then this is also where, when we're working with our clients, that you're having communication directly with our pilots. So we are piloting. It is semi-autonomous is the best way to kind of explain it, where we put waypoints in, or we geofence the vehicle, or again, in surveying, we're setting up our survey lines, and the vehicle itself is navigating those using its artificial intelligence and understanding how to best use the winds and the currents to navigate between those points. But we can change those, and I'll talk a little bit about that as I go through, based on customer needs. But this is also, we have an API, so if you have your own operating picture, or your own, such as Absolute Ocean, you want to bring that data into another visualization, that's definitely something that we make available for our customers. So why Saildrone? We've been doing this for almost 10 years. We've been navigating around the world. You see 20,000 days at sea, 900,000 miles sailed, and over 1 billion data samples collected. And we've been doing this throughout the world. We've been through all the 7 seas, circumnavigated the Arctic, the Antarctic, and all the way up to the Arctic, done transatlantic crossings out in the Pacific. Again, global reach, been able to utilize the sensor, lower cost, lower efficiency, but long endurance. So a little bit of ocean data. Amanda, or Amber, if we could bring up the video. So you might have heard that we recently went through a hurricane. That was on purpose. Working with NOAA, we have 5 vehicles out in the Atlantic, and then 2 in the Gulf of Mexico, where we pre-position those. So if you get seasick, you might not want to watch it. But we pre-position those vehicles so that they can get in the path, directly in the path of the hurricane. And that's really to help the scientists understand that air-sea interface of the warmth of the ocean and the energy of the ocean, how it's intensifying hurricanes. We've been very good at hurricane track forecasting, but intensification has been something that has been lacking. But using our vehicles and help measure that heat flux. So this is, recently, just last week, as we went through Hurricane Fiona. In there, saw about 120 knot winds, up to 30-foot seas, and the vehicle had no issues and was continued to operate on it, and is out there now, getting pre-positioned again for the next opportunity. Thank you. So we have been out in the Great Lakes. We've been working with USGS to do several fishery surveys, and this is actually a follow-on from some work we've done out in up near Alaska, when during COVID and the NOAA couldn't get their fishing vehicles out there, fishing vessels out there. They employed Saildrone to go out and do some biomass and understanding the fish population. And so we're doing that same thing here in the Great Lakes. Obviously, we want to continue to build on that and get into the ocean mapping world as well. And then just again, another example of what we're doing for ocean data, working in the Gulf of Mexico with the National Data Buoy Center. We're able to go out, and this is an opportunity where they have a buoy that's down. So we were able to take our sail drone and put a geofence around that and say, we want this drone to stay within 10 nautical miles of that buoy, collecting exactly the same information. And this is, again, we're not looking to, there are needs for fixed systems and moored systems, but there's also an opportunity to employ some autonomous technology to augment that where needed. And that's, again, an opportunity that we're looking to try to employ in the Great Lakes to help understand the environment and the habitat up here. Again, more relevant to this group is really the ocean mapping. And this is, as I mentioned, all of our vehicles can do something that can support all the verticals. So Explorer is really single beam because of, again, this is just solar power. We can employ it with a single beam sensor. And then the Voyager and the Surveyor, as you start getting to the higher capacity multi-beam echo sounders, we have a Norbit Winghead I-80S on the Voyager, and then on the Surveyor we have an EM304 for the deep water, and then an EM2040 for shallow water. This is a little bit more in detail of the Voyager, thinking about Lakebed 2030, what's the best vehicle for this area? It would definitely be a Voyager. It's a 33-foot vehicle, as I said, with the Norbit, and we do have an SVP on there, so we have employed that capability of being able to, it's not a moving vessel profile, we do have to heave to and drop the sensor, but it is AML6, so it does have the capability to add additional sensors on there, whether it's chlorophyll or oxygen sensors and those kind of things. This is an example of just, again, what you would see in Mission Portal as you're collecting the data. You see the color-coded image there. It's not full data, but that is raw from the vehicle, so you can see it's very clean. We do some edge processing on there just to do some of the data cleaning. You do have the 24-hour access to view the data, work with the pilots, and adjust the survey lines as needed. And you can see here's the SVP caps. This is an example of what we're doing right now in the Aleutians with our Surveyor vehicle. This is supporting OECI and doing some EEZ surveys with BOEM and USGS. What's really interesting about this is we were able to put, you can see our survey lines, it looks a little bit messy. It's not your normal track, mowing the lawn pattern. And the reason is because we have an adaptive line planning tool that allows us to utilize the winds, and we set up the line planning to maximize winds. We will use the engines where needed. There was a couple times in the Aleutians where we're in some pretty strong currents, 4 to 6 knots. That's not enough for sail, and it's a little bit more than the sail was able to overcome. So we did motor a little bit, but at that point, you're still only burning probably about 10 liters of fuel a day. But again, so that adaptive line planning was very useful to help us ensure that we're maximizing that the wind propulsion. Excuse me. And this is, again, deeper water down to about 800 meters. We're also able to start really employ our SVP down to almost 200 meters and make sure that we're getting that right information for correcting our sound speed. So again, as I mentioned, it's the Great Lakes are definitely important. That's why we're here today. It's a collaborative effort. We're looking forward to working with GLOS and NOAA and USGS and others that are trying to map the Great Lakes and try to meet that aggressive goal of 2030. So we think these long endurance, low impact vehicles are definitely one of the tools in the toolbox to meet that goal. So thank you.
Any questions for Evan?
So while you're doing the biomass work with USGS in the Great Lakes, were you also collecting multi-beam or single beam data?
No, on that vehicle, it's either or. So it's either single beam or a biomass. But I guess I would also mention, we are always collecting the metocean data. So all of our sensors mainly also for vehicle operations and just understanding what the pilots need, but it's also still collecting the barometric pressure, the winds, the sea state, sea surface temperature. So we're still collecting all the mid-ocean data as well while we're doing that.
You mentioned being sort of bandwidth limited with even decimated oceanographic data with the radio constellation. So I'm curious if, private sector players, bigger players like Sailor are seeing that as a linchpin and an increasing linchpin, and if you have any, plans or are aware of anything for sort of your own LEO constellation.
So we're not going to get into that business, but we are looking at stuff like Starlink and some of the other commercial capabilities that are coming out there to improve that, because we, like you said, I mean, we can send these out for 3 to 6 months, and I guess one of the things I didn't mention about the Endurance is our Explorer vehicle can go out for over a year, but the Surveyor and the Voyager, because of the fuel, it's closer to 3 to 6 months, and sometimes it's a little bit short of that if you're using more fuel. But yeah, we don't want to send something out for 3 months and now you've got 3 months of data. So we do work with our clients and customers to understand, do you want us to come in once a month? But looking at what are the capabilities to find higher bandwidth opportunities to pull the data off in real time.
Sorry for Michigan Tech having the questions. Interesting. Have you thought of wave energy to keep the thing going without carrying around diesel fuel?
Again, I think it's because of the power draw on those active sensors. Once you start, once you on the Voyager and the Surveyor, you have both radar and the multi-beam. That even wave energy, you still need to have something that's charging the batteries in a quicker fashion. But again, it's very low. It's very low. Very low capacity in terms of the fuel usage that it's using. When we were traveling, we just traveled from Alameda up to Alaska at 2,300 miles, and again, burned less than 10 liters of fuel a day. So again, it's very efficient.
What is the battery chemistry that you're using?
That's a good question. I'm not sure of that.
Kitch, I had a couple of questions, but one, when you're staging these to be around a hurricane that's approaching, how do you select your most senior pilots? And is there that sort of interface? And then are you all throughout the company that really zoned in on those vehicles, getting those live updates? Mm-hmm. And then the last part of that is the credentialing of those pilots and some of the new potential regulations that are coming out. Where do you see Sail Drone fitting in with what that pilot is responsible for?
So our pilots are all professional sailors. So they really understand, and they have professional certifications for sailing. So it's not, we've had folks that say, hey, I'm a drone operator. Can I come work for Sail Drone? You can, but you're not going to be a pilot. So we work with folks that have professional sailing certifications and understand it. Now, in terms of prepping those to get into the eyes of the hurricane, we really work with the National Weather Service and their team to try to best position those. Are we pulling our A team for that? Right now, it's a pretty small team, so they're all 18 players. So it really is a 24/7 operation for those folks that are working the hurricane mission. I would mention that when we are doing surveying, we have both a pilot and a surveyor. So we have a qualified surveyor that's looking at the data and the sensors and the multi-beam and the environment to say, do we need to do an SVP cast? And then we have the pilot who is monitoring the safety and health of the vehicle. So it's a dual team when we're doing survey.
How do you manage the speed? Do you reduce the speed to really result on the drones going forward?
Well, really, I don't think that the drones are the highest speed that we've really gotten the drones up to. And actually, when we were in the Aleutians recently, and we were surveying in 35 knot winds, 14-foot seas, that was actually giving us our best speed, and we were about 6 to 7 knots. And so if we need to, again, the drone can slow down. We can give it the command to say slow down to 4 knots, and it'll articulate the wing. And it does that on board. It's got that artificial intelligence to understand how does it need to again, articulate that wing to manage that speed. But that's something that we've really found as we've been putting the vehicle up in the Aleutians and running into these storms where sometimes, again, a crew vessel may say, hey, we've got to come off survey and go in a safe harbor. We've actually found that some of those conditions have improved our survey and improved the line keeping of just now that you're going 6-7 knots, it's a little bit easier to keep line keeping than when you're in, say, a 10-knot wind, and now you're having to use the motor and do a motor sail, kind of just keep that line spacing or that line keeping.
Other questions for him?
Kitch.
Sorry, Kitch.
That's fine.
I finished like.
Yeah. All right.
So wait. I know too. So if we talked about yesterday, today we're trying to figure out the right blend of crude and uncrewed technology is where those boundaries fall. I'm wondering from San Francisco, where do you see the initial limit of where someone operates, and probably conditions dependent, and how does that fall on your operation?
So we definitely look to stay out deeper than 10 meters and again, it's also going to depend on traffic, how dense traffic there is in the area. But we really look at one of the areas where we feel like we are best return on investment is the areas where you don't want to send a crew vessel during, whether it's weather or the extent where you are. Again, up in the Aleutians, it's a difficult place to get to. It's a difficult place to maintain a crew vessel bringing it in and out of harbor. So that's definitely an area where we feel like we bring a better capability, an improved capability or augmented capability to a crew vessel. So yeah, and deep ocean, as we think about seabed 2030, I mean, there's, large swaths of the ocean that it's incredibly difficult to get a crew platform out there and maintain on station time for months at a time. Whereas we're out there, we can it's just an operator back in the mission portal for 8-hour watch. So yes, sir.
I just have a quick question about sort of the meteorological observations of the sailors. I was just wondering if there's any sort of interface with some of the drones that are, because there's such a wide global spread of them at any given time, if there's any sort of real-time, ability for mariners to look at those observations in real time, just because middle of the ocean.
Well, so usually when we're working with a client, I mean, that's their data. So it's going to be dependent on what their releasability of the data is. Now the mid-ocean data, that is at a lower bandwidth. So that is essentially near real time that we can see. And again, if you're working with Saildren, you have access to the mission portal, you'll see that time series. But in terms of making that publicly available, it depends on who the customer is and what their requirements are for releasability. But again, when we're doing NOAA, the NOAA surveys for the hurricane, that data is going right to NOAA and making itself available to the public. Sure.
Thank you. Summary with the large number of vehicles we have out there in the extreme environments. I'm wondering what factors have caused damage or loss to sail drones in and out of the field.
Diuranians. Probably the biggest one. But no, I mean, honestly, they're extremely durable. We see sensors, some sensors fail. I mean, it's really more on some of the sensors than the vehicle itself. The vehicle, again, sending it through a hurricane, transiting the Southern Ocean, and biofouling is probably one of the biggest issues, and that's really having to bring it in every once in a while. If we do see reduced speed and we're not getting the efficiency that we want, we'll have to bring it in. It's usually a biofouling. But in terms of the durability and the ability to meet the harsh ocean environment conditions, they've been very, very reliable.
No like accidents or vandalism or things like that?
No, we do have, I mean, they're painted bright orange, so you do sometimes have, and they all have a 360-degree camera, so we do have sometimes where you see Bubba brings his boat up and it's like, I want to check this out. But we have not had any issues with collision. We are building, right now the pilots are watching, they're keeping overwatch there to really work with the the systems to make sure that we're staying out of high traffic areas. We're monitoring the vessel traffic to, if there's a potential for a collision, but we have not had that an issue yet. We are building automated artificial intelligent object avoidance into the technology once for the Voyager and the Surveyor, bigger vehicles, but once you put the radar on there, that's going to give us that range and bearing, which right now with the Voyager or this Explorer, we don't have.
So this is it's more of a comment than anything. So from a sailor's perspective and also from a surveyor's perspective, one thing that maybe could be lost on this concept of using a sailing vessel is you got the stability of the wind. You get up in the water, you know you're going to be rocking down the gunwale in rough conditions, but once the wind hits, it provides a stabilizing force. And it keeps the vessel kind of a consistent roll out the field. So there's from mapping perspective, that's critical.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's only so much multi-system to stabilize for motion, right? That all involves being steering. And the second thing is the beauty of the concept that you have, putting the sonar at the best location is guaranteed. So we're well below, hopefully, most thermoclines or haloclines. And then that yields into better quality bathymetric data.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, and also the other question that went online, and kind of some Iranians just stole that sailor.
They did, we got them back. They did steal them. And we knew where they were the whole time.
So can you do one last one? What do you have plans to put in sailors in Great Lakes next year?
So we obviously we're going to continue working with USGS and doing the fish survey, or excuse me, the biomass fishery surveys. But yes, I mean that's our intent. Because that's why we're here to talk with NOAA and others and Gloss and others, figure out what's the best way to get a sail drone out on the Great Lakes so we can chart and help support like the 2030.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you.
All right, thank you.